The Toronto Raptors have waived Ulrich Chomche. They waived AJ Lawson, David Roddy, and I'm pissed. I got to tell you, I'm very pissed. I would love to be rational about this, but this is a team that waived Christian Coloco, waived Brandon Carlson, waived Ulrich Chomche now, and also, just by the way, passed on Maxime Renault in the draft. And while you may not see any of those players as stars or starters, this is a Toronto Raptors team that is starved for spacing at the five, cost controlled contracts, and most importantly, athleticism and transition speed. Over Chomsky may be a lot of things. He's raw. He had an injury last season. He hasn't played a minute of preseason, which probably should have been a red flag to most of us. To those people saying it was a knee injury, not based on us witnessing him jumping up and down for Olivier Sarr's game winner. And oh, by the way, Olivier Sarr, you got waived too. Jared Roden, that wonderful little comeback, you got waived too. You get a wave, you get a wave, you get a wave. Everybody gets waived. Okay, cool. So the Raptors are down to 14 roster spots and two-way contracts, which means they will likely be filling that third two-way slot with somebody. Now, I personally think David Roddy is an NBA player. And there's a player on the current Toronto Raptors that I don't think is an NBA player. There might be a couple. So I think that this is a very strange place to start the season because Ulrich Chomche, for me, Chomche was because I call him Chomche, but then I heard Masai Ujiri call him Chomshi, and I figured I should probably trust Masai Ujiri on the pronunciation of an African prospect, but maybe it is Chomche. Point being, Ulrich was to me a representation of the type of player that I could envision long term being a good fit next to a Scottie Barnes or a Brandon Ingram. Yeah, he had years to go, years of development, but he showed a lot of progress last year in the G League. And I cannot understand why a player like Ulrich is off this team and Elijah Martin is on this team. I don't understand it. Getting waived like this precludes any possibility for him coming back to the Raptors in the near term because Ulrich is not a 10-day. Sorry, not a exhibit 10. So the exhibit 10 guys, which is Olivier Sarr, AJ Lawson, can stick around with the 905. That's part of the camp deal. So their camp deal will allow them to stay with the 905, but Ulrich will go into the G League draft, provided he goes down that route, provided he does not have some sort of health issues. And a lot of people have jumped to the conclusion that he may have blood clots or some sort of mystery illness that has held him out. The Raptors have been on the record saying that, they wanted him to play a lot last season. Like towards the end of the season, when we were seeing, Orlando Robinson, Colin Castleton minutes, those were Ulrich's minutes, and they wanted to give him development reps. Ulrich Chomche is 19 years old. He will not turn 20 until 2 months into the season. This is a very young player to give up on like this, one who has shown insane growth over the last 2 to 3 years, one who showed an impressive acumen for development and aptitude for learning, growth, asking all the right questions. His teammates absolutely adored him. From what I've heard from the trainers and the players around the team, the ones that I actually have contact with, everybody seemed to love him, even though he was a little bit annoying at times and, a little bit childish. He was like the baby of the group. And to see him get waived like this makes me think there's something much, much deeper at play here that we don't know about yet. So let's wait to pass judgment on this. But this was probably a Masai guy. Masai Ujiri is not here. I will mention Brandon Carlson because I was notoriously on the record saying I didn't mind that we passed up on Brandon Carlson. I wasn't that high on him when we, signed him as an undrafted guy last year. He was 25 years old. But I got to tell you, watching him in preseason, I see the vision. I get it. There were some people who were a little bit perturbed that the Raptors got rid of a 7-footer who can actually shoot threes because you have a 7-footer who can't, and you don't have another 7-footer who can hit threes. And Carlson at least projects as a guy who can competently guard and can hit some threes. He was last year, I believe he was 91st percentile among the league, by the way, in 3-point attempt rate. He basically does nothing but shoot threes. And this preseason, he had a 26-10 game. And oh, by the way, he won a championship last year with the very good at scouting OKC Thunder. It should probably be a pretty bad sign that the guy that you waived immediately signed with the Thunder and has stuck on for an entire year. So, look, the Raptors are not perfect. I think a lot of us myself included, give this team a lot of benefit of the doubt when it comes to roster moves, draft moves. But I think it's pretty fair to say that this Ulrich Chomche discussion goes perfectly into what is wrong with this team right now. And I would like to talk about it a little bit. Okay. So thank you, Trendy Views. These are the players that were waived. AJ Lawson, who showed at least a little bit of promise last year. We can talk about all these players. So Olivier Sarr, it doesn't bother me at all. Olivier is 26 years old. I don't necessarily see any long-term potential of him morphing into a rotation big. 7-footers who can stretch the floor a little bit and have his athletic pop do tend to get people excited. But when you really study his advanced analytics, when you look at who he's been for the last 5-6 years, again, watching him a little bit at Wake Forest, he's just not an NBA upper rotation guy. So I have no problem with it. And he's also not 19 years old. So I really have no problem with it. David Roddy, honestly, if your goal is to be a good basketball team this year, David Roddy is better than 3 to 4 players on your team right now. And I hate to say it, but it's true. And David Roddy is also a guy that the Raptors were deeply interested in the 2022 draft when, if you remember, they traded their pick, which could have potentially been David Roddy, Christian Brown, Nikola Jovic, Peyton Watson, Andrew Nemhard, and they traded it to move back in the draft to get Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young notoriously shits all over Toronto now and talks about how his family didn't want to be here. And we paid him $8 million. It's like a clusterfuck of two moves that just keep on hurting my soul. The Thaddeus Young trade and the Jakob Poeltl trade continue to just, and the OG Anunoby trade. These three trades just keep, it's like, sometimes you make a decision in life and it just keeps paying off. You're like, man, I'm so glad I made that decision because it led to this and it led to this. Like you go to a party and you meet like 6 people at that party, and then somehow you're starting a new business with one person. You get married to the other person that you met, and you're like, man, I'm really glad I went to that party. The OG Anunoby trade is the gift that just keeps on losing. The Jakob Poeltl trade is just honestly one of the worst trades in Raptors history. No matter how I feel about Jakob Poeltl today, I like him as a player, but that trade at that time really set the Raptors back. And if I could build a time machine and not make that trade, I promise you today the Raptors are in a way better situation. Even if that means right now you have Donovan Clingan or Matas Buzelis on this team, you feel a lot better about this team with one of those young guys on this team. Maybe you draft a Kalel Ware, who I was not a fan of at the draft, but has turned out to be a pretty solid pro. Zach Edey, I don't know. I mean, if all you wanted was a 7-footer who doesn't really take threes, why not take one who can take threes and is at least not going to cost you $25 million at some point? And then, of course, the Thaddeus Young trade, that reinforcement for Scottie's rookie season to eventually get stomped by the Philadelphia 76ers. I hate to start on such a negative note, but honestly, when your premise of your video is the starting five is struggling, when your initial topic was the starting five doesn't work, I think you need to probably adjust yourself and say this isn't going to be a very happy live. So, look, the Toronto Raptors starting five finally played yesterday, and they did not look good. They lost their first shift by, I believe, 12 points. They won their second shift by 2 points. By the end of the game, it was a negative lineup. Honestly, it sucked. Okay, there's a lot that was wrong with it. So I want to take a look at a clip that Esfandiar Barhani posted, and it points to a particular culprit of the problems that are going on in the Raptors lineup. And I want to just react to this because I think Esfandiar Barhani is, one of the guys in the Raptors space that has a lot of pull. He's a sideline reporter. He's working for Raptors Republic. He's working for The Athletic. He's definitely a name on the rise in the Toronto Raptors circle. He's a person who's very well admired and very well respected. And so I wanted to hear what he had to say about this so that I could respond to it and maybe point to maybe if I agree or perhaps disagree. So let's take a look. So here,
end of the second quarter, where the Raptors ran really good offense but still didn't get a good bucket because of their spacing. So they ran a dribble handoff between Scottie and RJ, then a high pick and roll with IQ and Jakob.
First thing, okay, again, I think you need to understand basketball really well to just see what's wrong here. Jakob Poeltl is coming to set a screen on Peyton Watson, right? The first thing that I can say about Jakob Poeltl that I love is his screen setting. He's one of the 10 best screeners in the NBA. If you're going to go early on a screen by him, you better score because he is trying to get this defender off of you and clear him out of the way for you to potentially unlock a pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and floater type of deal with Nehemiah Keita as the low man. And at that point, of course, Derek White will be forced into help, at which point, potentially, in my opinion, Brandon Ingram will get a wide open three. So the spacing is not a concern right now. Let's wait for where the spacing becomes a concern.
High pick and roll with IQ and Yaka.
This is where the spacing becomes a concern immediately, because now you're congested and you're running an action here which has generated you absolutely zero advantages, because Emmanuel Quickley decided at this point that this was not going to be a scoring possession, regardless of what Jakob Poeltl was going to do. Emmanuel Quickley made up his mind what he was going to do with this possession right here. Okay, so to flash track it here,
still didn't get a good bucket because of their spacing. So they ran a.
Again, spacing is a problem for the Raptors lineup, but spacing is just as much about your personnel as how your personnel utilizes each other. Not using the screen here is a mistake, in my opinion. There's nothing that you can tell me, oh, he slipped it or whatever. There's no reason to not use this. The only reason to not use this, of course, is because you've already decided right here that you're not interested in what the defense is giving you. You're interested in what you want to do. And what you want to do right here is run a handoff with Ingram.
Dribble handoff between Scottie and RJ, then a high pick and roll with IQ and Jakob. And IQ immediately, instead of flowing into a pick and roll, flows into a dribble handoff, an empty side dribble handoff with Brandon Ingram. And I like this because it's trying to get Ingram downhill.
How? So Ingram is supposed to cut through two defenders and meet this guy at the rim and hopefully find Yak behind. I mean, it's not perfect at all. The execution of this is not perfect. I can't think of a single basketball coach. If you're a basketball coach and you want to school me, please send me an email and let me know why this is effective and why this is going to yield you better offense given the construction of the other two players on the other side, because that's RJ and Scottie on the other side. As a point guard, you have to know that. Okay.
At the same time as having IQ pop out here to the corner.
What I'm trying to say is you've got your two shooters running this action and you've got your three quote unquote non-shooters away from the play. That's the first problem with this. The second problem is you don't use Jakob Poeltl at all, thus allowing Nehemiah Keita off the hook and Peyton Pritchard off the hook because you don't screen him. The third thing that's going to go wrong here, as you'll see,
and weaponize his shooting. But the reason this doesn't work, again.
Okay, so right here, you'll see Scottie at the top of the screen. He's so far out of the play that he's literally off the screen, right? So the culprit that's going to be made here is this is Scottie's fault. Because look, Josh Minot is able to help into the gap on the Ingram drive, and ultimately this is a problem. Well, let me tell you why this is a problem. Because you set the play up like this for this to be a problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? This doesn't have to be this way. Now, what do you want Scottie to do here? You want him to get a little bit closer so that Ingram has an even harder angle to throw him the basketball? Because Scottie being out this far isn't changing the equation at all. Josh Minot is happy to cheat off of Scottie. And if Scottie wants to shoot 45 foot, 35-foot jumpers, the Celtics will happily allow it. So the problem is how the play is set up and how it's executed. The problem is not necessarily that Scottie Barnes is 30 feet from the basket. The problem is he has to be 30 feet from the basket to give Ingram a viable pass. Because again, trying to maintain spacing comes down to this. When 3-4 people in a play misread the play, it's up to the fifth person to overcorrect. And Scottie is overcorrecting a lot. And I'm not saying he's been perfect at all in preseason. There's plenty of issues, and we'll take a look at some of those issues in this video stream for people who are saying you don't dissect any of Scottie's bad plays. We'll look at some of Scottie's miscues and mistakes, including that smoked layup that he had. But please understand that this play should not be set up this way. And the construction of this right now is Brandon Ingram is going in to help with poor spacing.
Is because Scottie Barnes is camped above the break here. And this isn't Scottie's fault. This is just spacing. This is normal spacing in terms of a regular starting lineup. But unfortunately, because Scottie right now is struggling from the 3-point line.
I want to be clear. At no point in Scottie's life has any team, been worried about him standing 35 feet from the basket. And by the way, if you put Scottie in the corner cutting to the basket like RJ is, and you put RJ at the top, the same thing would happen.
And probably isn't very well respected right now as an above the break 3-point shooter. He's not going to command this attention. So Minot is able to pinch in, and right here, again, a good pass here from BI, a great cut from Scottie here, strong side cut 45. But again, if you pause it right here, there are 5 Celtics in the paint. Tough shot for Scottie, or tough place for Scottie to try and operate. Tough place for all of the Raptors.
So calling it a shot or place to operate, he made a perfect, I don't say it's a perfect pass because the spacing is awful, and that's the reason why you don't do this. There's a pass in the corner to Quickley right here. If Scottie wants to make this pass as a big playmaker, he's perfectly capable of making this pass. Unfortunately, Derek White is not an idiot, and he knows that this is Scottie's out. So he's already kind of angling his body towards Quickley. And I guarantee you, even with 9 seconds on the clock, if Scottie does make this pass too quickly, it's not going to generate as open a look because Quickley has that super slow release and that load and stuff that nobody wants to talk about. And so it's not Steph Curry in the corner, it's Emmanuel Quickley. And if Steph Curry were on this court, I guarantee you Steph Curry would have relocated immediately to the top of the key. Like 100%, Steph is above the break right now. He wouldn't be standing in the corner because he would understand the angle of where he should be moving in this situation to make this a little bit easier for Scottie.
5 Celtics in the paint. Tough shot for Scottie.
So here, I mean, are we acting like this isn't a makeable shot for Jakob Poeltl from this position? If I showed you this position, you assume he scores every single time, right? Jesus.
Tough place for Scottie to try and operate.
I know what you're doing. Just don't. Sarcasm is not cool. I know you don't think this. I know you don't believe this. And honestly, you're not fooling anybody. So, if you're miserable, go be miserable somewhere else.
Tough place for all of the Raptors to try and operate, and they don't get a good bucket. Like the flow of the offense made so much sense.
Okay. So I just want to get away from this and largely just address some of the tough offense that the Raptors are going through right now. Okay. So I did something kind of cool yesterday, which is I wanted to fact check whether Scottie was getting to the paint. So I looked at his third quarter, and here are some drives from the third quarter for Scottie Barnes. You'll notice he gets to the rim a lot, and we can take a look. This is the play where he's one-on-one in the fast break against Derek White, and you're going to see something. He gets 2 inches off the ground. 2 inches. He's getting like 2 inches off the ground. This is a guy who measured with a 40-inch vertical. So when I told you a week ago, this guy's going through tendonitis, be patient for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Now people are saying, why is he playing if he's got tendonitis? Well, I remember a certain Toronto athlete who didn't play through tendonitis, and this media space and this fan base ate him alive. That guy's name is Vince Carter. So if this guy is willing to play through pain instead of shitting all over him for not having any lift or burst right now and acting like he didn't do any work in the offseason, how about chill? You have eyes, right? You can see that this guy is struggling to move at times, right? That's what tendonitis is. Go through it. You'll see. It's a load injury. It's not serious. It's not career debilitating, but it happens from time to time. Athletes go through it. Many athletes do. And this is why rest and recovery is very important. If anything else, I would bet my bottom dollar that Scottie is probably going through tendonitis right now because he probably overloaded himself for the last couple of weeks. But take a look at this, right? Here, he gets past Chris Boucher, and he forces, right? Now, look at this play. Where does he decide that he's going to, again, when I say the pass ahead of the pass, the play ahead of the play, seeing a couple plays ahead, et cetera, he already knows that he is ripping this through and he is manipulating Neemias Queta to get Jakob Poeltl. Now, this is a wide open, clean pass. Nobody can tell me that this was a bad pass. It's a perfect pass, and Queta's off the ground. This is 100% bucket if I've ever seen one, and this is the second straight bucket where Scottie has found Jakob Poeltl, and Jakob Poeltl just, nope, can't hold on to the basketball, and then takes this shot instead of just resetting the offense. Here, Scottie is going to drive, force 3 defenders at the rim to commit, and get a wide open shot for Ochai Agbaji. Just so anyone is clear, they guarded him with their best defender last night and sent a double or triple team every time he got within 10 feet. Anytime he posted up Derek White, there was an immediate hard double. For you people out there who think he's Draymond Green, go find where Draymond Green is being doubled and being guarded by the other team's best player. You don't understand what you're looking at, and I hope that this film session will be a good wake-up call for you. Okay? Perfect paint touch to corner 3. Here, is this a foul? Is this a foul that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets 150 times? I don't remember the Raptors broadcast ever bringing up that this is a foul. He's in the restricted area, just by the way, so the rule of verticality holds no weight, okay? He starts this play in the restricted area. He's on the restricted area. In the restricted area, he is angling his body forward and jumping into Barnes. This is a foul, okay? And this foul, combined with the fact that Scottie is willing to get 0 inches off the air and is just trying to muscle his way through this, is going to allow Minot to get the block on the weak side, right? This is crazy to me. But y'all call this a bad drive. Yeah, this is what happens when you have tendonitis and you're trying to avoid an ankle injury as an overcompensation injury. Now here, Scottie doesn't have any ball handling skills, right? Well, he just absolutely shredded this defender off the dribble. And here, he is going to take a little bit more burst than he's been willing to take. And you can see as he comes down, look at those knees. Do you see the caution? It's almost like he's like, let me turn up 10% athleticism to just try to get one. He was so frustrated at this point because he had not finished properly the previous time down. And he's like, okay, let me just try to dial up the burst like 5%. Scottie could dunk right over all these dudes. We've seen it. We've seen explosive Scottie in the playoffs. We have seen explosive Scottie in clutch moments. We have seen him do this. He is a better athlete than he has shown so far, but ultimately athleticism is hard to come by when you are hurting, and he is hurting right now, but he's playing through it because it allows the offense to run a little bit better, and he can still help his team on defense. He doesn't need to be 100% to help his team on defense. He's that good, okay? So here, this is the play that really pissed me off more than anything, and I want you to look at it. I really want you to look at this. Okay, we're going to slow this down, okay? Derek White is going to foul Scottie Barnes on this play. Everyone in the arena heard this slap. The Celtics announcers said on this slap, White got away with one. What did the Raptors announcers say? I will actually show you what the Raptors announcers said on this, which is specifically Jack Armstrong. But here you can see White is going to try to slap down on the ball. He swipes right across the arm of Barnes, which is an immediate foul right in front of the referee. There's 2 referees who can see this. There's 3 referees who can hear this. And here, Barnes is going to finish through the contact, and he looks at the referee saying, what the hell? So what did Jack Armstrong have to say about it? And I just want to show you a really slowed down version. This is as clear as I can show you. He 100% hit his arm on this play. Here's what Jack Armstrong had to say.
And Scottie wanted an and one. That's not an and one. Play through it. That hit a lot hard.
I got white privilege now. I'm going to use my white privilege to ban your dumbass. There you go. Boom. Cool. Okay. So here's the thing. Why is he playing through this? It's a good question. Why play through it? Why play through injury? Why? Well, simply put, you play through this type of injury because it helps your team. It helps your team to stabilize your offense, gets you rhythm. It allows you to be out there with your guys. If you're a team first guy, this is a guy who came back and played with a walking boot, and the next day he was like getting ready to play in a playoff game. Okay. The Raptors are not going to stop Scottie Barnes from playing. This is a guy who played through hand injuries. This is a guy who played through tendonitis. He played through tendonitis his entire second year. I was telling y'all, he's not getting any bursts. He's not getting any bursts. You've seen Scottie when he's right. You've seen Scottie when he's right. You've seen Scottie when he's wrong. He's just not the type of player that looks right when he's wrong. And there are certain players like this. Sorry, there just are. So what is wrong with the Raptors offense? Okay, let's listen to OT87, the voice of reason. Substitute Barnes for CMB in the starting lineup and substitute RJ for either Dick, Och, Hydra, Kobe. Boom, balanced roster. Who cares about the feelings? Balanced roster. RJ and Barnes on the bench. Deepest team. Okay. Wow. That is absolutely batshit crazy. You're not benching your best player. You're not going to bench your best player. You're not benching one of the top 15 defenders in the league because you need defense. And I don't think you understand how bad the defense would be if Barnes was on the bench, but good luck on that. And there's the optics, right? So here's the thing. The Raptors have a situation right now where they have 5 very highly paid players. They have one of the most expensive starting lineups in the league. And as much as these players are players, which is like what we like to discuss, right? In the regular season and the preseason, we're talking about these players on the court. The problem is they're also players off the court. Off the court, they're also assets. They're also people. They're also businessmen. They're also entrepreneurs. Okay? You are insane. If you think Colin Murray Boyles is a top 15 defender in the league right now, you're absolutely out of your mind. He wasn't like, no, it's not close. What are you talking about, man? Ugh. Okay, doesn't matter. You be you. You be you. But my point is, you're not going to bench Scottie Barnes. Okay. If you have like I know y'all want to, polish your shiny new toy, Colin Murray Boyles. But the minute you see Colin Murray Boyles shoot 0 for 12, from 3 for an entire week, you'll be screaming to trade him too. Y'all toxic as hell. So the point here is you're not benching Scottie, and it's difficult to bench RJ. I'm going to ask you to stop. Just stop. If anybody, how about this? I'll make you a deal. Okay, let's just get a vibe. Let's get a vibe for how the chat is feeling. If you can get, there's 280 people in here. If 10 people agree with this sentence, you can keep going. Give me a W in the chat. No, actually, give me an L in the chat. If you agree with OT87 that Barnes can be the anchor of the second unit, we will win more games with Scottie Barnes on the bench. Let's get a hater call right now. Go ahead. L, go ahead. I don't see a single L so far. So, look, I don't think L's in the chat. L's in the chat. Nobody. No L's. No support for OT. Idiot. Agreed. W pen. Okay. So nobody agrees with you here, which is cool. I think that Colin Murray Boyles can be very, very useful. He's a very different player than Scottie Barnes, and I actually think they can play very well together. I think the defense could be really great with them. I don't think he's a replacement for Scottie Barnes, and if you think they're comparable players, you're absolutely tripping balls. They are not. However, I will say this. Benching RJ Barrett or Emmanuel Quickley does not come without consequences. Number one, Emmanuel Quickley came here to start. He was paid to start. Benching him right now would be an admission to him that he is not working with the starting lineup, but it's also admission to him, to his teammates, and also to the league. He is also one of your leaders, at least spiritually, emotionally. He's one of your leaders. He's one of your vocal leaders. He's one of those guys. So you've put a lot of development dollars and a lot of real dollars into Emmanuel Quickley being your starting point guard, and frankly, bailing on that right now because he's having a really tough start initiating the offense. I think you just need to tell him, hey, paid you the $32.5 million. Now do what we're asking you to do, which is play more off the ball and take these threes. Okay. I wasn't thrilled. I was not thrilled when we signed him to that contract. I thought it was really rich. My desired, outcome for him was close to 22 to 25 million. But I said, hey, it's a flat contract, 32.5. Maybe he will. Okay, that's nice. We got one. We got one and we got 1.5. So my point is, you can't really bench them. You're not going to bench Jakob Poeltl in place of Mamu because Mamu is a minimum guy. And unfortunately, this is the politics of the NBA. You just extended Jakob Poeltl for 4 years. Like, it's an insane financial commitment to a center who has technically been regressing for the last 3 years. And no matter how you feel about Jakob Poeltl as some sort of Domas level, guy, he doesn't fit into this. We want to run super fast basketball, right? Guys who did fit, guys like Ulrich, guys like Pascal, they're not here anymore. So it kind of doesn't make sense what the Raptors are trying to do relative to who they're building around, relative to who they're putting around them. I think the only way that the Raptors offense would work is if Scottie really was Giannis. And I don't think he's Giannis. I think he's more Jokic than Giannis. I don't think he's either, but I think if I had to compare him to one of those two guys, I'd compare him more to Jokic than Giannis. And with Jokic, what you have is you have athletic bigs, see Aaron Gordon, guys who have some vertical pop, vertical gravity. You have movement shooters, see Michael Porter Jr., Cam Johnson now, and you have creators, right? You have Jamal Murray. Jokic struggles without Murray for a reason. So what you need as the Toronto Raptors is you need that guy who can consistently pressure the rim, who can break down the dribble a little bit and get Scottie going to the basket a little bit. This is not an indictment. Where I was today years old, literally this year, when I found out that playing off the ball meant you were somehow not a good player. That being able to play a little bit more off the ball and being successful in that role somehow meant you're not great. No, everybody's not going to be LeBron James and Luka Doncic. Some people are going to have to be Scottie Pippen. Some people are going to have to be James Worthy, Sean Marion. There's a lot of guys throughout NBA history that definitely did a lot of their work off the ball. Kevin Garnett did a lot of his work away from the ball. Tim Duncan did a lot of his work away from the ball. Also did some stuff on the ball. But that's not an indictment. Some of the greatest players of all time, frankly, are very good off-ball players. Thank you. That's the best example in NBA history. Steph Curry is a great off-ball player. Nobody has ever questioned, only in this fan base, honestly, the Golden State Warriors have pretty much run their offense through Draymond Green for the last 10 years. Nobody in there has said Steph Curry is bad because he can't initiate offense on the break as well as Draymond. That's insane. No, Steph does what makes him effective. Draymond does what makes him effective. So I will give you the perfect analogy for the Scottie, the Scottie is bad train. And I want to let y'all know what y'all sound like to me. Okay. So I have red and I want to make some purple. What do I do? Please spam the comment in the chat. What do I do? If I have red and I want to make purple, what do I do? Obviously, I add a splash of yellow. Then I get mad at red for not making purple. I learn a little bit, and I let yellow walk in free agency. I replace yellow with my favorite color, green. Once again, red doesn't give me purple. At this point, I'm getting pissed off at red. I wish I could just trade him for some purple, but alas, I continue to try. I send green away. Maybe he was the problem. I get the bright idea. Let me try a pair of oranges to help me make some purple. A year and a half later, I got no purple. 3 years of trying to make purple, and red is just starting to piss me off. Why can't he just make some purple? That's what y'all sound like to me. Okay? Basketball is chemistry. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Because people thought I was literally losing my mind when they read this. To me, there's a certain type of player that fits very well with Scottie Barnes, and there's a certain type of player that doesn't fit so well with Scottie Barnes. Jacoby Walter is a great synergistic fit with Scottie Barnes. Ochai Agbaji, a lot of great synergy with Scottie Barnes. Lauri Markkanen, great synergy with Scottie Barnes. Brandon Ingram, in theory, great synergy with Scottie Barnes. Jakob Poeltl is tough. RJ Barrett is tough. But if only one of those guys is there and then everyone else is perfect, it can work. It's like a critical mass. You can't tip the boat, right? Like in the Titanic, there's a perfect I think this is a pretty good way to look at this. Do y'all remember that scene in Titanic where Mr. Ismay, the guy who designed the Titanic, explains to the captain or explains to the owner of the Titanic why the Titanic is going to sink. He explains to him that there are 9 compartments in the Titanic, lower compartments, right? If 1 floods, 2 floods, 3 floods, we're fine. But if the 4th compartment, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's either the 4th or 5th, he says if the 4th compartment floods, it will sink. It's a mathematical certainty. This is how basketball defense and offense needs to be looked at. You can sustain 1 bad defender, provided they participate. You can never, ever build, in my opinion, you can almost never build without like 3 generational defenders, like maybe Wemby plus Kawhi plus Michael Jordan can compensate for 2 weak defenders like Karl Anthony Towns and, Jalen Brunson. But the vast majority of teams do not have the talent to compensate for 2 weak defenders, which is why I have issues with Grady plus RJ minutes. No matter how good it could be on offense, it gives you just as much problems on defense. It's the same thing with offense, spacing, right? Ochai Agbaji does certain things for your spacing defensively and offensively. RJ Barrett does similar things, some things for offense and defense. RJ Barrett has been very willing to compete at the point of attack, get really high, get in his stance, but he simply lacks the recovery, IQ, and off-ball awareness to compensate for all the gaps he's giving up. So somebody has to compensate. That person is almost always in this situation going to be CMB, Scottie, Mobo, or Jakob Poeltl. It's one of those guys who's going to have to clean up his mess. But then who cleans up their mess? So now you need a second good defender. You need 2 great defenders on the court plus 2 average defenders to make up for 1 RJ Barrett or Grady Dick. The minute you have 2 of them together, you basically need 3 generational defenders. The only lineup that can work with RJ Barrett, I'm not saying Scottie and, Scottie and these guys are generational, but they're about as good as you can get. This following lineup could work defensively, technically. Maybe it could. Scottie plus Mobo plus CMB plus RJ plus Grady. This could work. Maybe. You put your 3 best switch defenders to cover up some of the mistakes that your 2 weaker defenders are going to make. But if RJ is picking up at the point of attack 50 feet away, you're already setting up RJ to fail. So defensively, that's the first thing. People harping on RJ's defense don't realize what you're asking him to do is only achievable by like 5% of wings. And he is one of the worst wings defensively. So how can you ask one of the 5 worst wings to then go out and try to be OG Anunoby? He can't do that. He can't do that. He will never do that. At no point in RJ Barrett's career are his hips going to allow him to move well enough that you can put him on Derek White or Peyton Pritchard 30 feet from the basket and not get completely done. I think at this point you have to get away from development if you're Darko and just maybe try to implement a defense that can work. You don't have the personnel to play how you want to play. You want to run in transition. You have below the rim and at rim athletes. You don't have above the rim athletes, and your 1 above the rim athlete in your starting lineup, frankly, isn't finishing above the rim right now. He's finishing below the rim because he can't jump. It is Lays Quasum saying, please, I apologize if I've mispronounced that. Hi, Rob. I understand what you're saying about Scottie playing through pain to help the team, but we are in preseason now. Wouldn't resting him make more sense? Well, that depends. If this is the type of thing that can get worse through a little bit of light jogging up and down the court, I mean, Scottie's not full wind sprinting. Let's just be real. Scottie has gone at about 20% intensity the entire preseason. Some people have inferred this to mean he doesn't care. I think it's more or less he doesn't care about the results of preseason games. And that is a completely different situation than he doesn't care about the process of preseason games, right? This is just an extension of last year. Last year was basically an extended preseason. It was all reps. It was all development. It was just like we played 9 months of preseason last year. It's like the preseason never stopped. And in that situation, it's one thing to care about what you're doing, what you're communicating, how you're correcting it, the film study, the process, the development, the coaching philosophy, executing on timeouts, etc., versus caring about wins and losses to the point where it's making you sick. I don't think most people who are rational cared too much about wins and losses last year. They just wanted to see progress from the young players. They wanted to see Grady get better, Jacoby get better, Scottie get better, etc. But I understand that a lot of people who are expecting to see these players get better haven't seen the immediate results on their investment. They haven't seen that. One of the players we were super hyped about just got waived. So, I mean, shit. What I'm saying is the Raptors are between a rock and a hard place right now because it's not like they can easily bench one of their starters because they make entirely too much money. They're obviously shopping RJ Barrett. Like, I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know who's doubting this. I don't know who is even debating this at this point. They tried to trade him last year. They tried to trade him this offseason. Every single time we've heard they are trying to get X player, it's always RJ Barrett going the other way. And it's not lost on me that he was extension eligible multiple weeks ago and there is no word of an extension. This is not what you do with a high priority guy in your organization. So they've given him a lot of run. He has gotten a lot better as a catch and shoot guy. He is definitely a lot better as a playmaker. He tried a lot defensively, but at some point you're going to have to understand if you're going to have Emmanuel Quickley here, RJ Barrett probably isn't going to work. And if you had to pick between one, you might as well pick the better defender and the better shooter. That's just that simple. No, neither one of them are perfect. If you could design a team from scratch around Scottie Barnes, the only player on this team that would even be on that team is Brandon Ingram. If we're being honest, Brandon Ingram, let me construct a perfect basketball team around Scottie Barnes right now. That's realistic and probably would have been feasible at some point if the Raptors played their cards right. Let's see. Scottie Barnes, Kyrie Irving. Let's not even lie and say Kyrie was not attainable. He was. Kyrie Irving, Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, OG Anunoby, Miles Turner. That's a perfect basketball team around Scottie Barnes. That's perfect. That would be a championship contender. It's not difficult, and he could be the best player on that team. He could easily be the best player on that team. Between defensive and offensive aggregate impact, that's a perfect basketball player. There's other players that fit, but maybe, have some concerns. They're not perfect basketball players. Zach LaVine is a really good fit next to Scottie Barnes. If you want to think about how Zach LaVine plays basketball, Zach LaVine is a great fit next to Scottie Barnes. A live wire athlete like that. You want to take a look at a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Suggs. There's plenty of guys, but they're not perfect. None of them are perfect. Ingram's not perfect. He comes with a slew of injury concerns, defensive concerns, toughness concerns, contract concerns. He's very expensive. But Jakob Poeltl plus Emmanuel Quickley plus RJ Barrett, you are setting these guys up to fail. So at this point, the Raptors' real hope right now is basically you got three doors. Okay. Door number one, which you will never take, which is clearly bench somebody. You're not going to do it. You're not going to bench Scottie. You're not going to bench Jakob. You're not going to bench BI, obviously. And you're not going to bench Emmanuel Quickley. And you're not going to bench RJ Barrett. The only player who could even realistically be benched because he doesn't have a long-term contract is RJ Barrett. And if you bench RJ Barrett, let me tell you what could happen. You could become great because Grady or Ochai or Jacoby step in and just do the right thing in that role. And it just works. And RJ is great. But what could also happen is you could still be terrible. You could still be bad because it's not like you have Michael Jordan sitting on your bench right now that you're like, oh, well, there's this perfect solution. No, Grady comes with warts. Jacoby comes with warts. Ochai comes with warts. All are better shooters than RJ. Fine. All, are maybe a little bit more comfortable off the ball than RJ. Fine. Two of them are considerably better defenders than RJ. Fine. You could also potentially start CMB and completely suffocate your spacing. There's no perfect, obvious player to start over RJ Barrett. And there's no way to justify this. Now, let me make the other argument. What if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? Well, now you have pissed off your hometown kid, $27 million on feet. You have him for not just this year, but the next year after that. So you have $54 million signed to your books. He's not happy. Let's say he doesn't do well off the bench, or let's say your starting lineup doesn't do well, whatever. One of the two things, maybe both things. The starting lineup doesn't do well and he struggles off the bench. Congratulations. Now you've got Gary Trent Jr. You've got a contract that not only does no one want, you got a guy that barely anyone would sign for a mid-level exception. If you ask an average NBA general manager right now, Nickeil Alexander-Walker or RJ Barrett, I will guarantee you the average general manager out there is taking guys like Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Wiggins, Nickeil Alexander-Walker over RJ Barrett. And it's sad because RJ Barrett's a good basketball player. He's a really good basketball player. but he is of the star archetype. And what you need right now is not a star. And he's not a star. Just so we're clear, he's not a star. Under no circumstances is he a star. I had someone on a viral post tell me yesterday that he is like Ingram. He and Ingram are the same. They are absolutely not the same. They're not even close to the same. One of these guys has been an all-star. One of them is a dynamite three-point shooter. Well, I would say good three-point shooter. Ingram shot 37% from three last year, and one of them is guarded like a star. The other one is not guarded like a star. But RJ Barrett is a functional basketball player. If he can fix out some of his warts, and he's working on it. He's making quicker decisions. He's working defensively. He's, clearly a much better initiator than he used to be. It just doesn't fit. It's like orange, 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 orange. Now go make purple. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. The free throw shooting is one concern, but the defense is another huge concern. You got to give me somewhat of a stable two-way impact. So what I was saying was, what if it doesn't work with RJ is basically now you've got a disgruntled guy on your team. In a contract year, you've benched him. He is unsuccessful. The team is unsuccessful. There goes your team chemistry. So you can't just willy-nilly bench RJ Barrett or Emmanuel Quickley. It's not that simple. There's a lot of fans out there like, oh yeah, go bench Scottie, go bench RJ. No, you can't. You can't. You've paid them entirely too much money to just bench them. Okay. Yes, if you're a championship contender and you have LeBron James and D Wade on your team, maybe you can get away with it. But even that team couldn't have gotten away with benching Chris Bosh. You have to dictate and communicate expectations to players when they sign their contract, when they're traded here. You communicated to Emmanuel Quickley that he was your starting point guard of the future. You signed him to a contract that showed that faith. And right now, taking that away from him will hurt his trade value and will hurt him. And ultimately, if it hurts him and it hurts the trade value, it hurts you. You're shooting yourself in the foot here. So door number one isn't so pretty, which is bench someone. Door number two, wait it out. This ain't so pretty either. Because if it doesn't work, right? If this team comes out to a 2-10 start, what's your recourse at this point? What's your exit strategy? What is the thing that you can even do with this team? What do you have? Trade RJ. Trade him for what? Trade him to who? You don't think they would have traded him if they could have traded him? You're not trading RJ for positive value at this point. Do you understand what I'm saying? They tried to trade RJ Barrett for Brandon Ingram last year, and the Pelicans said 3 years of RJ Barrett or 1 year of Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk. We'll take Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown and give us a first round pick. They were not going to, like, if the Raptors could have traded RJ straight up for Brandon Ingram, they would have done it. And they would have attached a pick to it. So the fact that the Pelicans chose to take Bruce Brown's expiring plus Kelly Olynyk shows you where the cap is moving. Give you some context. Jonathan Kuminga, who is younger than RJ Barrett, just signed a reluctant $23 million deal. And certain people think that that's an overpay. Keegan Murray just signed a deal for $140 million, 5 years. People think that's an overpay, a massive overpay. Keegan Murray is a more portable player. He's a worse player, in my opinion, but he is a more portable player than RJ Barrett, which is to say it's easier to just plug him in. He's more multi-positional. He's a better shooter. He's a better defender. When you can't shoot and you can't defend, when you can't defend in the NBA, your only pathway, honestly, to making big money is to be a star. RJ Barrett, if he could just defend, would be a lot better as a basketball player. But those tight hips, slow feet. He's not getting better defensively, man. I mean, last year we saw flashes of it, but we saw flashes of it in New York too. Just consistently, he's just not a great defender. He's not switchable. He's not very multi-positional defensively. Offensively, still does that sort of one-way drive, has no real mixed in the middle game. He's not super efficient. Yeah, he drives a lot, but he's not super efficient when he gets there. He's not efficient under the rim. He's not an above the rim athlete. And as much as you want to praise his catch and shoot efficiency, it's not even close to the guys that we're talking about, like Keegan Murray. Okay. So the pathway to success, like this is like, there was this time when Jahlil Okafor and Enes Kanter and guys like that were just suddenly out of the league. Just really good 7-footers who could block shots or grab rebounds. Andre Drummond just went right away to like minimum contract. Hassan Whiteside's out of the league. And people are like, what is going on? The NBA is crazy. Well, yeah. Archetypes are a big thing in the NBA. They're a big thing. And people pay attention to what works and what doesn't. OKC and Indiana showed you what worked. RJ Barrett's closest comp on any of those teams is Ben Mathurin. And Ben Mathurin is a better defender and a better shooter and a better athlete. So at this point, yeah, you got this guy who can put up 26 and 5, but so do the Brooklyn Nets. And they just signed him to a $6 million deal. You need to wake up and realize how the league feels about RJ Barrett. And so that brings me to door number 3, which is make a trade. You're not going to get what you think you're going to get for RJ Barrett. When fans see, and I suspect RJ or Ochai, but probably RJ, is going to get traded at some point this season. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't say I'm hating. I'm not hating. I'm telling you 100% he or Quickley or somebody's getting traded. It's probably going to be him. Okay. When you see the return on it, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. You are not going to be happy. You're expecting a poo-poo platter. You're expecting probably, if you're delusional and you live in Delulu world, you're probably expecting that for your 25-year-old, 21, 6 and 5 guy last year, that you are probably going to get a first-round pick and a young player and maybe a serviceable expiring. You're not getting anything close to that. You're not getting a first. You're not getting a second. What you are getting is a straight dump of expirings that nobody wants, or worse, you're getting a half-decent player that a team is willing to give up on to get off a contract that is even worse than RJ's. And that contract I'm talking about is something along the lines of a Patrick Williams, at which point I will say that probably is the deal you have to do. It's going to be addition by subtraction, just like it was with Rudy Gay. Now, I remember, 2011, 2012, having debates with people about Rudy Gay. Wasn't a fan of Rudy Gay, but Rudy Gay came to Toronto with a lot of hype. I want to tell you, Brian Colangelo met this guy at the airport and said, finally, you're home. Rudy Gay, who would later, of course, recount that he didn't want to be in Toronto either. Funny how Rudy Gay and Thaddeus Young have the same vibes. Bullshit basketball players. Rudy Gay, I remember infamously at some point, people who followed this team after 2019 won't remember this, but basically got so upset after a tough shooting performance that he banned box scores from the locker room. This was a very confirmed rumor at the time. And I remember debating with people that I would rather build this thing around Kyle Lowry. And people thought Kyle Lowry was a scrub. Like, I couldn't get out of it. But people were just like, Rudy Gay is really good, man. And it's all because when Rudy Gay came to Toronto, there was this clip that circled of Rudy Gay hitting a buzzer beater over the Toronto Raptors. And there was this guy who's screaming, oh, no, not this guy. And it's Rudy Gay hitting the shot. And in that shot, he looks like he's a superstar, right? Because he crosses over and he goes to the right and he hits a fadeaway like he's Michael Jordan. And people became so obsessed with that clip that for one entire year, they kept telling everybody that Rudy Gay was going to turn into a superstar in Toronto. The numbers told you he wasn't going to be a superstar. His court processing told you he wasn't going to be a superstar. His percentages told you he wasn't going to be a superstar. He is way more athletic and a way better defender than RJ Barrett. You need to wake up to what you have on your team right now, which is a very fine basketball player for a different era of basketball. Because in the modern NBA, where everything is speed, athleticism, and you got giants like Victor Wembanyama walking around who are blocking shots off the backboard, honestly, man, a player who doesn't finish above the rim, who isn't a great shooter and isn't a great defender, just isn't a good NBA player. And it's weird for people to hear 26 and 5 isn't a good NBA player, because 26 and 5 is the definition of a good NBA player. That's the definition of a good NBA player. 26 and 5. What do you want? Ray Allen? Michael Finley? He ain't Ray Allen. He ain't Michael Finley, because those guys guarded. So you have to look at both sides of the ball. And honestly, if you give me 21 points on low efficiency, the other thing I'll say is every offense has tough shots, easy shots, and through the course of the game, you will run many versions or many types of offense. You'll run, let's just break it down here. Play out a simple quarter. First play, you'll run an empty side pick and roll, which results in the opposite corner, open 3 in the corner. The next play down, you might get a turnover and you get an open dunk. The next play down, you run a pick and roll with the big being a lob threat, and the guard throws a perfect alley-oop to the big. The next play down, you hit a fadeaway with the buzzer going down. What I'm trying to tell you is that every offense has easy buckets and hard buckets. And some people are scavengers when it comes to easy buckets. Okay. Scottie, as a rookie, was a scavenger for easy buckets. He found empty, pockets of space to attack. Those spaces were created by other people. The court had been manipulated or pre-manipulated by Fred, Pascal, OG, Gary, basically more talented offensive players than him, and he was just able to gap in. So when he averaged 15 and Cade averaged 17, I understood that a lot of people were like, his 15 is nothing like Cade's 17, because Cade's 17 were the harder buckets. Last year, right, Scottie Barnes took a lot of hard shots. So Scottie Barnes had that Cade responsibility to some extent, where he's having to generate offense. He's now the one who's not benefiting from the defense sagging off of him, because now he's the one who's high up on the scouting report. To the people who think 19.9 points playing next to Siakam, or 21 points playing next to Siakam and OG and Dennis and whatever, versus 19.3 points. And by the way, scoring at a higher rate per 100 possessions, because largely his 19.3 points was largely due to the fact that he played fewer minutes last year. If he just maintains, that's a huge win. 19.9 became basically 20 points per game last year if he played the same number of minutes, and his shot diet was way harder. Yeah, he became less efficient. Are you surprised that a person who has to self-generate shots and is getting double teamed consistently is going to be less efficient? Of course he's going to be less efficient. That's the point. But if RJ Barrett is put in the same situation, he is going to be more of a scavenger. He's going to find his opportunities in early transition. He's going to barrel to the rim, etc. But when the playoffs start and when you have to get a bucket in the half court, he will be just as inept as Scottie Barnes. And ultimately, it's just going to come down to, even if you can argue RJ is a marginally better player on offense because his drives are cleaner or his handle's a little bit tighter, can you even debate the defense? You can't. So no, you're not going to bench Scottie, and you're not going to trade Scottie because BI and RJ have a little bit of synergy in preseason. You're not going to do that. You're also not going to bench RJ and start Grady or Jacoby or Colin Murray, because you have no guarantees that that's going to work. As I said, you don't have any blue chip prospect on the bench right now, like a VJ Edgecombe, where it's like, okay, he's a top 3 pick, we have to start him. And even VJ Edgecombe wouldn't start on this team. I hate to break it to you. He wouldn't start on this team either. So it's just the Raptors are between a rock and a hard place. And I think the best move for them right now is to cut their losses. And this is me being very real, even if it means you are the ones trading a second round pick or something, and just repeat the Rudy Gay trade. Repeat it. Get 2 serviceable role players. And I think I know why the Toronto Raptors decided to not fill that 15th roster spot. I think I know, because when it comes down to a trade, you want to have an extra roster spot. It allows you a little bit more flexibility than your competitor. And the point here is, if you end up trading RJ Barrett for Ayo Dosunmu and Patrick Williams, that's not a loss in my book. Yes, neither of those players are technically better than RJ at all. But you can make an argument that you're a better team with the 2 worst players. And this is the logic that always eludes other people. Sandro Mamukelashvili is not a better player than Jakob Poeltl. No one would make that argument. Jakob Poeltl commands more money on the market. He has more win shares, more this, more that. But if you want to make a case that Sandro Mamukelashvili would be a better starting 5 for this team as currently structured, that is a completely logical argument. And so the point here is, when you're trying to make purple and what you have is red, what you really, really, really desperately need is blue. And does it matter that it's a really cheap blue and your yellow is really expensive? No, because if the goal is purple, which is to say the goal is to win, you'll understand that, the analogy was purple, which is Raptors. The orange was RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. I thought a little bit about that. Yellow, Fred. Okay. Some super chats here. OT 87. Bobby drafted CMB to do things Barnes used to do. That is not entirely true because CMB is already a more polished driver than Scottie Barnes. He is not a zero level scorer by any means of the imagination. He floor lifted a very weak South Carolina team in probably the best conference in basketball, in collegiate basketball history, and was way better in college than Scottie. He is also a below the rim finisher. He is also a weaker shooter than Scottie Barnes was at the same age. And frankly, a completely different type of defender. You cannot just simply look at a player and say, okay, 6'7", 6'7". Well, even though Conor Boyles is more 6'8", sorry, 6'6", and Barnes is more 6'8", but whatever. You cannot look at a player who's 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan and compare them to a jumbo initiator who is 6'8", vertical athlete with a 7'4" wingspan. You can't. Number one, positionally, they're not the same. Number two, the fact that they cannot shoot according to you or whatever does not mean that Scottie doesn't have a very evolved mid-range game that he can go to, that he doesn't have the bigger strides, that he's not more athletic. They're just very different players. But if your point is that CMB is going to be more of a workhorse on defense, I hear you. I get that. And that would be really good for Scottie. Jaden Wushi said, I'm sorry, but Scottie is terrible offensively. What do you think of his offense, Rob, and what can he do better? I think he's hurt. And I think it's obvious to everybody. His jumper is flat, everything is short, and his finishes at the rim, he's getting 1 inch off the ground. We've seen this before. We saw it in his second year. And after his second year, it was admitted and confessed that he had tendonitis the entire way through. He waited the entire season to admit it, but he did have tendonitis. And he's not lying. He came out the next season. He was healthy, and we saw what it looked like. It was an all-star. He averaged like 22, 10, and 5, 22, 10, and 6. And he was averaging like 15, 14 points per game for most of the previous year. So yeah, like when he's going right physically, I just think, look, injuries are a problem with Scottie. I've mentioned this before many times that I don't think, and if you caught that interview that I did with AJ DeBonce's trainer, you caught me, throwing a little bit of shade towards Scottie's training when it comes to athletic training. Please don't take this as a shot at Brian. It's not. Brian's a basketball trainer. I'm talking about his athletic training. I'm talking about Alex McKechnie. I'm talking about the Raptors staff. How you have a guy roll his ankle 15 times in a season and don't have him tape his ankles is insane to me. One. Number two, why is this guy so worried consistently about driving and rolling his ankle? Why does he always roll his ankle? There's a proprioceptive angle to this, which is to say, I think his body is a little bit disconnected from his body. And so he doesn't always have the greatest control of where his feet end up. You'll see Shea and perhaps more proprioceptive athletes like Luka consistently drive and have no problem because they know how to land and they have a good idea of where their feet are going to be. Scottie is just an unnatural offensive player right now, and it's going to take him a lot of reps to get comfortable enough to do this without getting hurt. That's really what it comes down to. Like, he's gotten injured a lot. He's gotten hurt a lot. Let's just say he's always playing through some sort of nagging injury or whatever. He's a very physical player. And when he wants to win, he gets insanely competitive. And then, we see these plays. Like, how many times have we seen him fly over a defender, fall on his ankle, and boom, he's out for 4 games? We saw it. We saw it against Miami. We saw it when he gets super physical, he doesn't mind his feet well enough and he gets tripped up. Like, he'll step on someone's ankle. Someone will step on his ankle. It just keeps happening. So it's almost like he's consistently having to play with one eye on his foot to say, how do I do what I want to do here and not land on someone's foot? And I think teams get away with murder when it comes to guarding him. Like, I think teams hack him all the time. He got fouled at least 6 times yesterday. I think he went to the line once. So it's nutty to me. But in terms of overall, I think Scottie's made a lot of progression offensively. Take it from someone who's watched him for the last 7 years. I've seen growth in his game every single year. Every year. Scottie injured when our season ended February 2025? Question mark. What? Season ended February 2025? Our season didn't end in February 2025. But are you saying that he was injured? Yeah, he was. He had the hand injury. Okay. Yeah, of course. I personally think the offensive slump we're seeing is a bit odd, is usually not this bad. I don't know, man. You see athletes from places like Brazil have great footwork in soccer because children grow up running around playing in their bare feet. I completely agree. I think Scottie Barnes needs to lock in, do some barefoot training, get a little bit more balance and a little bit more coordination. I think he needs to open up his hip flexors. I hope, I hope. I interviewed this trainer, Eric, and he is Jacoby Walter's athletic trainer. You'll notice Jacoby Walter is, in my opinion, a very functional athlete. And my hope is that Jacoby will get Eric to work with Scottie, because I think Eric could help him a lot. I think he could, help his hip flexors. I think he could help him avoid some of the injuries. And well, here's the thing, man. Like, I don't know. I'm not Scottie's best friend. If I was his best friend, this is the first thing I would literally tell him is, bro, I got two people, one in Texas and one in Los Angeles, who can help you a lot to avoid these injuries. But if the Raptors and all their infinite wisdom, sometimes they gas themselves up so much on the fact that they helped Kawhi load manage and whatever. Like, I'm not doubting Alex McKechnie. The dude is a legend in the space. Like, he came from the Lakers and he's a permanent staple in the Raptors. But I wonder if, Scottie's getting the right treatment here. Right. Horrible coordination. Did you see Scottie rollerblade look like a giraffe in the streets of Florida? Okay. So here's the thing, man. OT 87. I don't know how tall you are. I'm going to assume you're about 5'5" from the way you're talking, but maybe you're about 5'10", 5'11". Basically, you're a functionally normal height human being. I'm going to assume you're not 6'5" or 6'6". I know a lot of people who are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". I have a friend who is 7'4". Shout out Slavko. So every person that I know who's over 6'7" has some uncoordinated tendencies. It is a very weird height to be as a human being. You have consistent joint pain. You really think that? Maybe Scottie isn't tough. Regular 6'1". Dope. You are 2 inches taller than me. So at 6'1", 6'2", 5'11", 5'10", I think you're perfectly normal. Like, there's not, like, it's not a difficult thing to do. But at 6'6", 6'7", with super, super long arms and super long legs, do you realize Scottie Barnes, like, dwarfs you, bro? You're 6'1". This dude would make you look like, a child. He is 6'8" with a 7'4" wingspan, hands the size of almost Shaquille O'Neal. His legs are exactly the same length as most centers in the NBA. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is not a normal body to work with. And so you cannot just assume that because you have read 2 articles on BuzzFeed that you have some inclination or some idea on how to train this guy. I have been reading on this shit for 5 years. I played basketball, I played 4 different sports, and I don't even know. I don't know. So how do you know? But there are trainers in this world who I think could help him a lot. Athletic trainers who can help him out with the balance and the coordination and all that stuff. And I feel like, he's getting better with it, right? He's getting better with it. BuzzFeed catching strays for sure. Yeah. Why is James triggered? Scottie needs to do more cardio and flexibility training. He trains too much for muscle mass. Different competing thoughts on this. He's not the quickest twitch athlete, so strength might be his path to success. He needs to be super strong. If you see how Paolo moves guys out of the way, when you see CMB and how strong he is, you see Jokic and how strong he is, Luka and how strong he is, I think it's a pretty good thing that Scottie is really strong, because if he wasn't strong like this, I don't think that he'd be able to get advantages. You look at some of the plays that I showed, right? Like the ones where, Scottie's attacking the rim here. Look at this one for sure. If he's going full speed, Derek White has no chance. This is a guaranteed 2 points in the regular season when he's right. There's nothing anybody can do. We have seen Scottie be an absolute beast, okay, in transition. Last year, he was terrible in transition. This is a fact that has been circulated and repeated and repeated and repeated because D-Lee pointed out to Samson on a podcast. Everyone shared it in the group chat. Now, Esfandiar Barhani is talking about it. William Lou is talking about it. And everyone's just like, Scottie's terrible in transition. Yes, but why was he terrible in transition? Last year is because he settled for a lot of jumpers in transition. Why is he settling for jumpers in transition? The same reason that he didn't cook Corey Kispert off the dribble against Washington, because we're doing development reps. Look, man, you get away with a lot of things in basketball. I remember in 2000, it was 99, 2000, and I was watching a Toronto Raptors game, and Tracy McGrady comes down the court, and the defense backs off, and there's this pull-up jumper that is available to him. And instead of taking that pull-up jumper, which is hilarious given what Tracy McGrady would become within the next 2 years, he doesn't take it and instead barrels into the defense because he's more comfortable running, jumping, and dunking, which is what he did at, Mount Zion, and, what he's done in his first year in the NBA. Tracy McGrady was a freakishly coordinated, very fluid, very rangy athlete. And he got a lot of that, transition dunks and stuff. And he was a very exciting player to watch early in his Toronto Raptors career. But I remember Jack Armstrong, ironically, pointing out he needs to be able to be comfortable pulling up for 15 feet when the defense sags back. Scottie Barnes had no counters in his second season. None. It felt like if the defense backed off, he really didn't know what to do. He was running around with like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to look for a pass. And it was very depressing to watch. And honestly, his second year might be the only time I've ever watched Scottie in the last 10 years and actually thought to myself, this might not happen. This might just become a role player. I'm worried. And that was his second season. And when I found out that he was injured during that year, it made a lot more sense. But then I would see those fourth quarter, flashes, and I'd be like, you know what? He still got it. He got it. There's still something very special about this guy. So you're not scoring 17 or 19 points. It's just like, do you know how many hurdles you have to ignore? Do you know how many events and games and data points and analytics you have to ignore to arrive at the conclusion that Scottie Barnes is worse than Colin Murray-Boyles right now? You know how much evidence and expert testimony you have to deny as absolutely nonsense rubbish to arrive at the conclusion that RJ Barrett is better than Scottie Barnes? You have to be actually delulu. You have to be crazy. You have to be a special brand of crazy, like should be hospitalized crazy to come up with that. And you know who else? You know what? To look at a guy for 4 years that you've watched for 4 years, that I've watched for like 7 years now, to watch this guy and say, based on 60 minutes of preseason action, I'm done with this guy. I'm off it. I've sold my stock. That is truly insane. And as someone who watched this city give up on Vince, give up on Kyle Lowry, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. This is an idea I'm sure most, and you definitely probably would be opposed, but do we think Scottie Barnes' ideal possession just might be center? Not like he can't guard him. Would it not help his spacing issue in the team as well? Yeah, it would. But you need, so who's your power forward in that situation? Because you need a lot of help there. Because now he's your only rim protector, and now he can't do what he's supposed to do, which is be like that roaming weak side guy. So he's going to have to be the primary, which means you're going to have your star player getting beat up every single night by the biggest dudes in the NBA. He's going to have to guard Mitchell Robinson. He's going to have to box out Jonas Valanciunas, Nikola Jokic. You're giving up so much size in this situation. He is big for a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward. He's not big at the 4, and he's actually miniature at the 5. When you see him, like, even though he's able to guard Nikola Jokic in a pinch, I think this is a good idea for a specialty lineup. Like, maybe that's the value of Scottie, is that he can play the 1 through 5, and he can legitimately do it better than any player in the league. I think he can guard 1 through 5. He can guard and play 1 through 5. Like, name another player. Actually, here's a challenge for y'all. Name another player who can guard and play 1 through 5 without saying the word Cooper Flag. And Cooper Flag can't guard 5s right now, so don't even say that. But other than Scottie Barnes, name a player who can guard 1 through 5 and play 1 through 5 on offense, who has had actual NBA success starting at 1, starting at 2, starting at 3. That's it. So the only other player in the league that you could really see doing this is LeBron James. And the only other player who through their first 4 years has averaged 15, 5, 5, 1, and 1 is Michael Jordan. You understand what I'm saying? OT87. Why are you against Scottie being a dominant low post playmaking power forward, small ball 5 instead of the soft playmaking guard with horrible efficiency and worse shot selection? Well, OT87. 1, I'm not William Lou. This position belongs to Will Lou. Will Lou thinks this. They talked about it on the Raptor show a lot. They think that this is the best way to use Scottie because this is how they were introduced to Scottie. I'm not them. I wasn't introduced to Scottie as a hustle big at, Florida State. Okay. I was introduced to Scottie as a live wire point guard at AAU, running his own team, averaging 8 assists, 9 assists, playing defense, and wreaking havoc on everyone, even though his jump shot was butt fuck ugly. Okay. So when I say that anchoring biases matter, it matters because when I saw Scottie Barnes, I saw Magic Johnson, Scottie Pippen. When he saw Scottie Barnes, he saw Draymond Green. And that's the problem because you kind of see what you want to see, right? I think Scottie's the only games, let this sink into your head. OT87, appreciate the support. The only games that you have won in the NBA so far in the playoffs as Raptors have been with Scottie at the point. That's a point. Anyways, I got to jump off real quick. I completely lost track of time. It is 7:05. I got to jump on to playback right now. Talk to y'all later. I apologize for cutting this off abruptly, but I'm not trying to get fired. Peace, y'all. And thank you very, very much for all the super chats. Very much appreciate y'all. Also, red salute. RJ is 6-man start Ochai for defense and off the ball. I like this. I like this a lot, actually. But again, I've outlined reasons why I don't think that this is going to work. Peace, y'all.